Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you all for being here for this really important conversation. Homeless Help 101. We welcome Chris Knestrick and Jonathan Harris, two Braids from Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless, a group that is very well known to us at Trinity. And I know this is a conversation you've had in a number of places. I see many people who I recognize, who I know, and some people from the wider community. And so we're so glad you're here. My name is B.J. Owens. I'm the Dean of Trinity. I've been away for the last 3 months, so I'm seeing many of you all for the first time. So good to see you again, except I'm going to hats off to Marcia and Gregory for setting this up. But just a side sabbatical note, I actually ran into Marcia's daughter on a flight from Dublin home. So you always have to be on your best behavior, and Gregory doesn't know this yet, but I saw him going through TSA pre-check, and he got away before I could go. So you're going to have to use your imagination to think about where Gregory was running off to. Okay, enough about that. Let's get to what's really important. We all know why we're here. We know not only does the reality of homelessness, it's heartbreaking for those who are experiencing it, for those who want to be part of a network of support and dignity. And here at Trinity, that's a reality for us, not only because of our history and where we are located, but also because of who we are. But we don't always... our hearts are full, and we want to do good things, and we want to see the humanity in people. And I think we're so blessed to have practitioners who can help us to start by understanding what is the lived experience, what is someone going through, and how can we integrate that into how we meet them and really see the image of God in them, help them to see the image of God in themselves. So with that, I'm going to begin with a prayer. My friends, God be with you. Let us pray. Loving God, God who teaches us to welcome the stranger, to bring them in, to give them shelter, to be changed by the experience of meeting them and beginning a relationship. Help us to explore what this ministry with can mean, how we can be skillful and supportive as we honor the dignity in each and every one of your children. Give us open eyes and open hearts today to look at hard things, but also to begin to find ways that we can bring about healing in our neighborhood, in our city, in our nation, and in our world. We give thanks for Chris and Jonathan. Bless their continued work. Help us as a people, as a church, as a city, listen to their witness and take their counsel. Be with us. May this gathering today be holy and generative. All this we ask through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. So we're very excited to be spending the afternoon with you all and talking about something that we talk about every day, all day. But we're happy to be here with all of you and share this information that we want to share. Just to give you a little bit of who will be with you today, we'll introduce ourselves, I think, just starting. My name is Chris Knestrick. I am the Executive Director of the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless. I've been doing work with individuals experiencing homelessness for about the last 21 years, and that journey has taken me into this role. The Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless is an organization that is rooted in understanding the root causes of homelessness, believing that the community as a whole can work to end homelessness. And part of that work is our education. We do a lot of different education like this. We just ended our summer intern cohort, about 8 interns that spent the summer with us. And we do lots of workshops, lots of different ways to engage the community to help understand why homelessness exists in our community. We do a lot of organizing and advocacy rooted in the philosophy of like people that with lived experience are best suited and best understand how to change policies that target them and lead them into homelessness. And so we have a homeless Congress space that we organize where folks that are currently or recently homeless come together and collectively build policies and have a voice in our community. We work a lot with tenant organizing tenant associations and tenant unions around Cuyahoga County to really build tenant power, because we know one of the, housing stability comes with having power and control over your rental unit. And then we do kind of best known for our street outreach work. We work with people that are living unsheltered in our community, experiencing homelessness. These are folks that are living under bridges, railroad tracks, maybe in your backyard, on your front porch. And so that's me. I don't know. I'll give Jonathan a chance to talk about what you do and who you are.
For the record, I'm Brother John, but only in the sanctuary. Outside of the sanctuary and in the streets, you can just call me affectionately Two Braids. It's kind of it's a visual cue. So in the community, I'm known as Two Braids. Chris Knestrick never calls me John or Jonathan. Thank you, Pastor. All is well. You can call me Two Braids too, BJ. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Minister. All is well. I'm 54 years old, and for the first 40-some-odd years of my life, I, to be quite honest, despised homeless people. I didn't understand them. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I'm like, how could you possibly be a functioning, 20 to 50-year-old person, able-bodied, whether you're struggling with drugs or alcohol or coming from a situation of incarceration, justice impacted, background, why would you possibly be homeless? Like, who would ever want to be homeless? Why would you choose to be homeless? I never understood that it wasn't necessarily a choice, but more of a life situation or a circumstance. About 13 years ago, I was coming from a situation of incarceration myself, and returning from incarceration, I had a spiritual awakening or an epiphany while incarcerated, and I decided that after 30-some-odd years of drinking and drugging and running in the streets, breaking the law, going in and out of jail, doing a life sentence, 6 to 12 months at a time, in and out of the county jail, in and out of the penitentiary, crack, a little bit of heroin every once in a while, snorting, shooting, smoking, drinking, whatever you sit in front of me. I asked the Lord Jesus Christ to deliver me from that and take the taste of the drugs, alcohol, women, cigarettes, all that crazy stuff out of my mouth. And I made a determination and a commitment that once I was released from incarceration, I would go about things the right way, being a sound mind for the most part, 40-something-year-old man. I said, well, I'm going to get out of here and do the right thing. I'm not going to go back to the streets. I'm not going to drink and smoke and do drugs. I'm going to try to, commit myself to do the right thing. So I went to the city mission, and I stayed at the city mission for about 20-some-odd days. And the way the city mission works, you have to be really, really focused on Jesus and sobriety. Well, I got Jesus and sobriety in the penitentiary. I didn't necessarily need a refresher course on Jesus and sobriety. So the program manager, who had recently passed during the COVID pandemic, he came to me, like, hey, Two Braids, man, let me holler at you, man. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, Rick, man? He like, man, you got to shoot a dribble, man. What you going to do? I say, shoot a dribble. I'm like, I'm good. I leave in the morning. I come back in the evening. I'm sober. I got a few dollars in my pocket. I'm good. He like, no, man. He like, you got to be here during the program during the day. I say, well, I don't really want to do that. I can lead the program. I can pray like anybody. I'm good. I know AA and 8 to 12 steps. I got all of that. I'm like, he like, no, man. He like, to be here, you got to be in the program actively during the day. I say, well, I can't do that. How I'm going to work? He say, well, maybe you might want to go to the 2100 so you can, freestyle and do your own thing. I say, man, why in the expletive would I want to go to the 2100? He said, well, what you mean, two braids? I said, I want to know 2100, man. That's for homeless people. He say, expletive, don't you know you homeless? I said, homeless? Hey, I say, I'm homeless. And I walked back and forth between the city mission and the 2100 for about 2.5 hours in the rain on a Friday till I made the decision going to the 2100 and accept and embrace and engage my homelessness and housing insecurity. Went in there, got my driver's license. Some people from the church helped me get my driver's license, started driving the shuttle bus, working in the office, got in the occupational work experience program at the 2100. Didn't never go back to Minuteman because Minuteman was a setup. Got in the program at the 2100, and now I'm a staunch advocate and supporter for Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries 2100 Men Shelter Program and all of the partners in the continuum of care and the collaborative. Fast forward about 4 or 5 years, getting reconnected with the Pentecostal Church of Christ, working there. I had an opportunity. I got a guy named Ron Register called me. He like, hey, Two Braids. He like, man, I was talking to Chris Knestrick. You know Chris Knestrick from New York? I'm like, yeah. He like, man, he said he got a opportunity for the outreach training program. He said, you think you want to be a part of that? I said, yeah, man. I said, I can do that, Ron. He said, okay, man, I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to give Chris your number. He'll be calling you. So the point of that is I had such a terrible criminal background that the people at the 2100 where I worked in the occupational work experience would not hire me because they thought I would be a detriment to their work staff having me on the payroll, and they felt that I would be a detriment to the men in the homeless shelter. And Chris Knestrick met with me and gave me the opportunity to be in the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless outreach training program. And to this date, I was the longest
training.
The longest trainee. I was an outreach trainee for about 3.5 or 4 years till a guy named Luke Droder, who's a veterans associate program director for Frontline Veteran Services, met with Chris Knestrick and offered me the opportunity to be the veterans outreach worker. And Chris is like, well, if you take the veterans outreach worker, you got to get on the payroll. We can't do, I'm like, let's roll. And I've been with NEOCH the past 6 or 7 years, and I'm grateful. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak with you today. I'm going to give it back to Chris. At some point, he gave me about 4 or 5 questions about my work, and I don't know if he actually wants me to go into the work that he allows me the opportunity to do in accompanying the people that we serve in the community, but I'm grateful for where I'm at today. The first 40-some years of my life, I was disrespectful to my mom, my parents, the people in my community, and disrespectful to myself. And now, on this side of the cross and sobriety, I have a better understanding about what life is really all about, and I'm grateful for that. I'm really grateful, and I'm appreciative. And that's how I lead with all of my outreach and community endeavors and just my life experience in general. Just to lead with respect, gratitude, and appreciation every day. And I'm grateful. With that, I pass. All right.
I'll bring it. We'll come back to you.
Yep. Thank you.
So we're going to spend some time together, and I think one of the things that is really helpful to ground us in understanding when we talk about homelessness and Homeless Help 101 is, I think for the second half of this we're going to do some activity to really understand the root causes of homelessness, because I think when we talk about doing this work, showing people dignity, there is a real need to understand what are the barriers, why people experience homelessness. And so I think we're going to spend a good hour of this afternoon really diving into there. And we're going to do it together, because that's the way we should do it, because there's probably lots of good information here and other things. So I am going to Why do people become homeless? I'm asking you all. Like, what are the reasons people become homeless? Lost their job. Loss of job. Hold on. I'm going to keep going. And I heard evictions. So I'm going to say two things here. What would you say if I said around 50% of people living in shelter have jobs that are currently experiencing homelessness?
I would say that's true.
Say that again. Sorry. Say that again. Yeah. What is the minimum wage? Oh, that's federal, but what is Ohio? $10.30, I think. So $10.30. Yeah. So there's some information that we get from the Low-Income Housing Coalition that talks about the renting thing. So I would ask you, a single mom making $10.30 an hour would have to work how many hours a week to afford a one-bedroom apartment in our community?
Like 100.
Not 100, no.
It's like $1,500 for an apartment.
It's 74 hours is what the information shows, right? So 74 hours a week to afford her apartment, yeah.
She's got nothing else.
And raise her child, right? Have time to spend with her loved ones, right? It's an impossible feat. So when I often think about this, and how many people have heard, like, why can't they just get a job? How many people have ever heard someone say that, right? And what they're saying is, why can't this mom just pull up her bootstraps, work 74 hours a week, raise her child, and have a life, right? It's an impossible feat. It doesn't work. I heard evictions. So evictions are probably the most acute way. The last data I saw around families, around 50% of families that come into our homeless shelter are directly from evictions, right? And over, I think, 85% of evictions are for simple non-payment of rent. Say that again? Yes, yes, that is so true, right? The social system as a whole, and this is what, all of this. I heard, what are some other reasons? Addiction. Hold on, one at a time. How do we understand addiction nowadays? As a disease, right? Substance abuse disorder. Mental health. So, what do you think, what is the percentage of people that are experiencing homelessness that have substance abuse disorder or behavioral health, a mental health disease? You think 25, 30, 15? What do you think it is? You think it's 75? So there's been 3 big studies on this nationally, and it always ends up around 27%, which is very high. 27% is the 3 national studies when they did it, right? And so, clearly disproportional compared to, the regular population, but, most people sometimes think 75%. We talk about this. People are like 90, 100%, like all of these things. But it's not. It's it's high, but it's not.
Do you know what the percentage is in the general population?
I don't know. I want to say it's around 15% typically, or 10%, but I don't know. What are some other reasons? I'm going to go here. We love complicated reasons. Yeah. So I talk about this a little bit in terms of network poverty. he said like people burn their bridges with the people, like their family members, and you know, if you were homeless today, where would you do? You would go to a friend. What would your friend say?
You could stay here for a while.
You could stay here for a while. If you were homeless today, what would you do?
Yeah, well, actually where I'm living, we're about to be that way.
Okay.
I guess I could go to family for a while.
Yeah.
Or leave the country where it's cheaper to live.
Yeah, and safer probably at this point. Yeah, absolutely, right? My brother recently got divorced. He called me. He's like, "Can I come live in your basement?" And what did I say? Yes. I said yes, right? But what we're talking about is, yeah.
If you remember from my soliloquy a few minutes ago, I didn't understand that I was homeless at 41, 42 years old. That's why I didn't know I was homeless, because all of the previous times doing reentry and returning from jail or the penitentiary, I would always just go live with a sister, live with my mom, live with my aunt. I was never homeless. And then at 42 years old, I turned and I said, oh, well, I'm going to do this different. I'm not going to, get some weed and smoke some weed and drink a beer and a bottle of wine. And I'll go to the city mission and start over, because you don't necessarily have to be homeless at the city mission to get treatment and counseling and be in a therapeutic community. So I didn't know I was homeless. And then when I got to the 2100, I realized I was actually homeless.
And so we're talking about whole networks of people, neighborhoods, and communities that are facing all of these things, right? So, for example, if you're living in a subsidized unit, right? Your family is living in HUD subsidized housing. Can your son come or your brother come live with you? No. What happens? They get evicted, right? So we're talking about whole communities. Or you got someone that's already staying, like your sister's already staying with me with their 3 kids, and now you want to come with your kids. Like, I don't have space, right? So we're talking about whole communities that are really struggling this way.
I really like the word network. It's better than the word strangers. Some people don't have family. They not have their friends.
Yeah.
Got in trouble early in life. They don't have friends. They don't have family. They don't have family.
Yeah, I think that's totally right on. What are some other reasons? Domestic violence. That is actually the other 50% of people going towards family shelter are typically fleeing domestic violence. Yeah.
Think of overwhelming trauma, whatever that might be.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And how that builds up in the context of a person's life.
Yes, so 2 things here. How many, when we think of homelessness, we hear a lot about veterans' homelessness, right? And why are veterans disproportionately experiencing homelessness? Vietnam War veterans, for example.
Because of the mental issues that they're...
Yeah, PTSD. Yeah, the trauma they experienced, right? We hear a lot about that with veterans. How many people have ever heard of the Adverse Childhood ACEs quiz? Do you want to say a little bit about it?
I'm trying to remember how I'm an educator.
Yeah.
Traumas that you experience, things like homelessness or food shortages or abuse, things like that you grew up with, and how they can impact your future ability to thrive in life.
Yeah, so I think the test is 10 questions they ask you, right? It's like, were you ever subject to abuse? And they can track your adverse childhood experiences into your success later in life. And one of the things they're able to track is your likelihood to experience homelessness later in life.
Just sharing this. I'm a former teacher, volunteer now in school. Every year, 4 grad schools are homeless. they don't even know they're homeless. Kind of like the Braids. That's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
We had a homeless child who moved. His family moved. They were away moving to come down. I said, "Well, what's going on?" I said, "We got a better environment." They moved to a better homeless shelter.
Wow.
He says,
Yeah, that's starking. That's stark.
So when they start that early, it could be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Normal for them.
Yeah. And, like, I think there's some other stuff on this that's really important to understand is, like, when we're talking about network poverty and trauma and, like, how toxic stress functions in people, you know, I think we often, like, how could they have made that decision, right? Like, what happened? And I think when we understand homelessness as a crisis, like, how many, like none of us could make good decisions when we're just simply trying to survive, right? Like, you don't make good decisions if you didn't sleep well that night, you don't know where your food's coming, like all of these things, right? And so, you know, they've looked at toxic stress and said it, like, immediately lowers, like, your IQ by 10 points, you know, and so we're, you know, layering this all on to really see the impact. There's lots of other reasons out there. So what are some of them? Unemployment. Yeah, we talked about that. Loss of job, unemployment. Yeah.
You could just sort of start with losing your car. Like maybe it gets stolen and you aren't able to really get to work. So it's just like something that you just tip off.
Yeah, like, you know, how many people are like one paycheck away from, you know, yeah. One of the things that I found very, like, almost diabolical is, does anyone know how to get a child care voucher here? Anyone there? So to get a child care voucher, you have to have a pay stub. But to get to work, you have to have child care to get a pay stub. So, like, how do you do that, you know? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna give you the secret here. This is the secret. Housing is the solution to homelessness. That is the secret, right? I'm just gonna tell you right now. But yeah, it's over. You can go home now. But I want to, like, I think, like, we talk about all of this stuff, and then it's just like housing is unaffordable in our community. So I want to, Cuyahoga County, Lorain, Northeast Ohio, so the data I've seen is we have around 91,000 extremely low-income renters, right? And we have 34,000 extremely low-income renting units available. So, there's just not enough affordable housing. Yeah.
In my experiences as a street outreach worker, I know for a fact that there are over 60, upwards of 70 families experiencing unsheltered homelessness where there's a waiting list within the continuum of care. It's called coordinated intake, where the family, the head of the household, will have to call in to a group called coordinated intake, and that's who their initial point of contact is. And then they say, hey, I'm a mom or a family with the father involved, and we're experiencing homelessness. We're on the streets. We've got 1 to 4 or 5 children, and we need shelter and to help get connected with housing. And coordinated intake, because NEOC might not have the funds available to afford a hotel for 2 or 3 months for the family with the woman, maybe the father still involved, and the 1 to 4 or 5 children will have to live in habitation that's not suitable for a human occupancy or a car or something until a space at one of the family shelters, Laura's Home, Zelma George, the Haven, or something like that. So they're literally unsheltered women and children, as the teacher was saying in the back of the room. There are women and children under the age of 16 experiencing homelessness in Greater Cleveland as we speak.
Thanks, Two Birds.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to go back here.
The process of getting help, someone applies for help, SNAP or anything else, may take 6 months before all the paperwork is gone through or they check the person. So they need help today.
Yeah.
And in order to get help, they may have to wait for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ask, what is the percentage of women and children who are homeless compared to the men?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I don't have that data on top in my head. I think by far the largest number of people experiencing homelessness in our community are single adults. Like, that is the reality. I think family homelessness looks really different. So, and the Department of Education actually says being doubled up. Well, we don't even have a Department of Education anymore, do we? There is that if you're doubled up, you're homeless, right? So HUD, like our homeless system, you're not homeless until you have nowhere else to go, right? And so when we're talking about family homelessness, I would say that like a family that has to move around and live in hotels and stuff is homeless. HUD would say you're not homeless until you're on the street. So I think when we're thinking about family homelessness, you end up running into a numbers issue around definitions. I want to go back to some other reasons. We're not done. We have lots of other reasons up there. Yeah, go ahead.
And you just raised one. The things that have been listed up there all focus on the person. We have a system that
absolutely
people in the homes.
Yeah.
Like that HUD requirement.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that somebody in subsidized housing can't have a family member come with.
Yeah.
So it's not that we have a dysfunctional, it's not that the system is dysfunctional, it's that the system is dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Designed.
So I want to layer this a little bit deeper. I think that's so true when we're talking about a systemic issue. I want to talk about, I don't know if I have this data on me. 85% of people experiencing homelessness in Cuyahoga County are black. And so when we talk about homelessness and when we talk about root cause of homelessness, poverty is not a defining factor all the time, right? Like, in fact, like being black in America is a more defining factor of whether you will experience homelessness in our community, right? And so we have to point at something else. We can't just point at poverty. We have to point at racism. And that's what we often talk about is like racism causes people to be homeless. Like that's why this disparity is so unbelievable in our community. And so when we talk about racism, what happens there? Yeah, redlining. So what is redlining? I don't want to assume everyone knows what it is, but...
Yeah, it's just setting aside different parts of the city that can't get mortgage financing and so on. It's a system it's a decision of the banking system, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it was the federal government's policy, right, to not loan to black and brown neighborhoods. How do we build wealth in the United States? How is wealth built in the United States? Property ownership, right? Real estate, right? And who was prevented from owning property?
People who don't already own it.
Yeah, black and brown people, right? And they did that through redlining. How else did they do that? What did you say? Credit. I thought deed restrictions, right? Like written into deeds. Deed restrictions. Yeah. Anyone know the name of the zoning code? This is actually really interesting. Euclidean zoning. Do you know why it's called Euclidean zoning? It was created in the city of Euclid to keep black and brown and poor people from moving to the city of Euclid. The whole zoning code that the United States functions out of is named after the city of Euclid when they instituted a zoning code to keep black and brown and poor people from moving into their city, and it centers around single-family homes, right? That is the strictest zoning code possible. Anyone knows Euclidean zoning, like Euclid?
Nationwide or just?
I think the zoning code's used nationwide. I just want to say something else about this. I could be wrong, but I think the last report I read is that Independence, Ohio is the most single-family zoned community in the United States. Has anyone ever seen like no multifamily zoning wanted here, like a sign like that? Like I think Chagrin Falls had them up the last year or so. Like basically that's what they're saying is like we don't want any zoning that allows multifamily, like which is like you can rent apartments, they don't want that in their community. Yeah.
Just a little bit of a branch off of racism and single-family zoning. Does the fact that over the generations we've really cultivated single-family housing and this normative idea of a nuclear family, that means there's just less space for alternate arrangements when your brother needs a space to live. Or there's just not room in a single-family house. And that's how we built our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very insightful. I just want to say, yeah.
I know, there's some places like Charlotte, Ohio, or Jackson County where they have single-family homes, but they have to be on at least an acre of land. So, that's, keeping the concentration of housing down. The other thing I wanted to mention, which is prevalent in New York City, was there's a while when profiteers were running homeless shelters, not only homeless shelters, but
like SROs?
Affordable housing that wasn't like city-owned. There was one street where there was, in the West 80s, where there was a high concentration of these housing apartments that were owned by profiteers, and they had high crime and lots of people living on the streets.
Yeah, it doesn't sound unfamiliar. I'm much different than out-of-state landlords buying up Cleveland's housing stock in its entirety right now, right? Like that's what's happening. We have
for all the good Bloomberg tried to do, they were trying to do.
Yeah. So, yeah.
This is going back a little bit. But I grew up in what's thought of as the inner city of Cleveland during a period of white flight and everything. And the only way to sell a house at that point was either through FHA or VA. And I think it was an attempt to increase black ownership. From what I can piece together, I think the missing piece was living in a rental unit is a lot different than living in a home you own. And there was no education on that. But right now, the street that I grew up on, I'd say at least a third, if not half the houses, have been torn down because they were inhabitable. And maybe you can't address something that, happened in the 60s, but...
we had the housing crisis. I think so much of the lost housing stock happened in Cleveland during the 2008 housing crisis, where predatory loans were given to families that they were just unable to pay, and they lost their house because of that. I think one of the things you see now is like a rise in property tax foreclosures in houses, and that oftentimes is equated as that people were just trying to pay their mortgage during that time period and not paying their property tax and have never been able to catch up to their property tax. So that's really true. But I want to say that, like, this is actually a really helpful thing. But people did buy houses, and they often did them. Does anyone know how that happened? Land contracts, right? Can you say what that was?
Well, anything that you paid directly to the seller, and then if you lose the payment, you lost the home as well as all of the equity.
Yeah, and so there was a study out of Chicago that looked at land contracts just in Chicago alone, right? And it looked at them from 1940 to 1970, right, in the city of Chicago. And this process, and there was some really amazing organizing. And so through land contracts alone, this study estimates that $4 billion was taken out of the hands of black people and put into the hands of white people through land contracts, right? Between 1940 and 1970. In Chicago alone, right? So you could imagine like that practice was everywhere, but this is just Chicago, right? And so when we're talking about generational wealth, affordability is like there was a process to extract wealth through housing, right, out of the black community and put it in the hands of the white community. And, you know, we're living those consequences now, right? I just want to I'm trying to make sure I want to talk about, like, mass incarceration, right? So you said, what did you say? You said applications and credit checks, right? And I want to say criminal background screenings. The more I go, the worse my handwriting gets. See. How many, so we did a study in Northeast Ohio. We did a study of all the HUD subsidized properties in Cuyahoga County, right? And we took their tenant selection plans and we looked like, how do you become a tenant there? And 80% of them had lifetime look-back periods for misdemeanors. So we're talking about the most affordable housing in our community is doing life-back screenings for misdemeanors and denying housing based on that. And who's disproportionately entered the criminal legal system and who's disproportionately impacted by criminal background screenings, right? Black and brown people. There's a couple other things I want to just talk about in the systems level here before we move on. Yeah.
There are many LGBT
We're connecting.
thrown out of their homes.
Yes. Yes. That is very weird. Like, you nailed that. So, yeah.
Just adding to the example. This class where a lot of kids who are homeless will have voluntarily told the SCM 101
Mm-hmm.
they have a parent, some have two in jail.
Yeah.
I'm saying 50%. It may have been over 50%. I didn't ask the class. 50% voluntarily told me they had a parent. One or two parents.
Yeah.
Which again, talking about third graders, it's almost being normalized.
Yeah. No, the mass incarceration system has been normalized in every part of our society, and now it feels like it's like hyper, like with like what's happening with migrants to the possibility of just arresting people that are homeless on the street and putting in it's. But I want to go back to what you said. So 40% of young adults that are experiencing homelessness have identified as LGBTQ, right? And it's really important because I say this, but I should say, like, heterosexism, transphobia, like, these are the reasons people are experiencing homelessness, not because, like it's important to name what the pathology is, not the. And then people, like, where do people go when they need help? They go to church, and what does a lot of the churches say? Not our church, right? Yeah, I grew up Catholic. It's like, forget it. Like,
they go to the wrong church and really hates LGBTQ people. They'll make them feel worse, and then that's like a whole form of trauma, and it just creates this big snowball falling down a hill where they don't they just can't function, so they end up with nothing.
Yeah, no, and I mean, they live in a family, they came out to their parents said, we don't accept you, we don't want you here anymore. The church that their parents go to is probably feeding that belief, obviously, right? So they go to the church they know, and it's the church where that hate is preached.
We have a 12-year-old young boy in our church, Grace Episcopal in Mansfield.
Mm-hmm.
Come out as trans, changed his name.
Yeah.
He couldn't be in a better church.
That's beautiful.
Oh, I disagree. We're glad he's there. We're glad that's a good place.
So, anything else here that we want to talk about before we move on? There's a couple other, yeah.
What about the people who want to be homeless, who cannot stand being in a building?
Where are those people at?
We have one in Mansfield.
Yeah? You have one in Medina? Yeah, so, we have been doing this Home Forever Neighbor program, right? And been working with individuals that are living unsheltered, and we've housed over 180 people in the last 12 months, right? And everyone has said yes to housing. Everyone's like, we're like, here's an apartment you can move into right now. Do you want to go? And they're like, yes, let's go. And so I go both ways, right? Is it possible? I would also say, like, in our system, most of the long stayers are also struggling with a disability, a behavioral health, disability that is preventing them from being able to access housing, right? And so I think what we see when we work with them is like the need for long-term relationship building and engagement with them, and continuously housing offers being offered to them over and over and over again. And with the hope that they would say yes eventually, right? Yeah.
I think one of the other things that's probably underlining all of this is just basic prejudice. When I was working, I would work downtown and take the bus downtown and back home. And waiting for the bus, sometimes a homeless person would come by. And I usually kept a couple singles in my pocket to give to that person. And one day, that happened. And a couple of the people waiting for the bus said, why'd you do that? You're just feeding their drug addiction. Well, I didn't know that. I mean, there is nothing to say that's what I was doing. But it just came back to the basic prejudice.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that they might have gone and bought alcohol, right, or bought heroin, and if they didn't get it, they might have died, because you die. That's what happens. If you're a severe alcoholic and can't drink anymore, you end up going through the bends, right? Or heroin. That's what happens. Go ahead. I want to just, let's stick to the root causes really quick.
So two things that I see a lot.
Uh-huh.
I live in Stark County.
Mm-hmm.
One is people who get evicted, the eviction is on their record.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's systemic. And the second thing is divorce and essentially deadbeat dads. So when you go from two people supporting a family to one person.
Yeah.
Back into the whole thing that you started.
Yeah. Really important. And it's also, this not only if you actually got eviction, if you got an eviction filed on you. So you don't even have to get evicted. If the filing went through, then it's on your record. So root causes, I'm taking two more. I got to move on. I'm taking two people I haven't heard from yet. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like the largest growing homeless population right now in the United States is people elderly, right? Fixed incomes, their rent increases. What do? Yeah.
Just a question. How much would like $2.4 billion help to solve this problem?
It would help a lot.
And why do you need a new Brown Stadium?
I mean, yeah. Empires need coliseums. Empires need coliseums. He said Browns, like, how much would the cost of the Brown Stadium help to solve homelessness, right? So I'm going to take one more, someone I haven't heard from yet.
Is anything being done for people that choose to be on the streets because they've got a pet?
Yeah, so that is a huge reason why people, that's a great segue. That's a huge reason why people are unsheltered in our community.
I came to the office yesterday, Chris.
A dog. A very cute dog.
Veterans, companion animals. The veteran was going into treatment, and the reason Chris entered into the agreement with the VA and Frontline Veteran Services is so NEOC has some latitude on what we're allowed to do, whereas the VA or one of the outreach workers or community liaisons from the VA couldn't accept the care and responsibility for one of the clients or veterans' pets. NEOC could, so I asked Chris, I'm like, hey, Chris, I got a veteran going into treatment. She got a little chihuahua. Can I get it? He's like, yeah, you cool with that? I'm like, yeah, I got a little Yorkie and a French, and that's a French Bulldog and a Boston Terrier mix. I'm like, a third will only make the family happier.
So where do you go? Where do people go? If you're homeless. Like, where does the system work? How does the system work? They go to we're a coordinated entry system, right? And it's a phone number, which is in the street card. Tuber probably knows it by heart, but.
Area code 216-674-6700.
Right? You call and you do an intake, right? Our continuum of care, which is kind of all the homeless service, when I say that, I mean like all the homeless service providers in our community, right, that are receiving, we serve around 12,000 people a year. And you go there, right, and they triage you. They ask you a bunch of questions, and then you can go, we have a shelter system. And so you have people that have pets that typically sleep on the streets because you can't go to a shelter with a pet, right? They're no couples. Yeah, it's a gender binary system. So you have the male shelter run by 2100 Lakeside, run by LMM. Then you have the female shelter, which is run by the YWCA and on Norma Hair, right? And so we do have an open access policy, so it's how you identify. You can like a trans person that identifies as a female could go to the female shelter, or a trans person identifies that's male could go to the male shelter. And then we have the family shelter system, which is we have too many families in our system, so we have an overflow. And then we have the Westside Catholic Center Family Shelter over on Lorraine and 32nd. We have Zelma George, which is the Salvation Army. And then we have Family Promise, which is the family shelter, another family shelter. We do have I'm missing a youth shelter. What's that called again? North Point.
North Point at East 15th and Superior. It was previously the Lake Erie Motel. The city or the county purchased it, and now it houses approximately 150 to 200 18 to 24-year-old and certain members of the LGBTQ community that are deemed appropriate to be there as long as they're working and actively engaging with their sobriety, so as not to be a detriment to the 18 to 24-year-old population.
So when we talk about young adults in homelessness, we're talking about 18 to 24. That is the age range of which you're a young adult, and you have different access to different resources.
So it was really young adult, not youth.
Not youth, yeah. 18 and younger is not the homeless shelter system. It is. So yeah, this is helpful. The city mission, which is both Crossroads program and Laura's Home, which is for families, are technically they're privately funded, right? So you don't have to go to coordinated intake to get access to the city mission. You can just call and go directly to these places, right? So to get to any of these, you have to go through coordinated intake. The city mission, most of that's a funding requirement by HUD, and the city mission doesn't need to do that because they have their own funding. This is all shelter, emergency shelter, yeah.
City mission has the best nutritional options in Cuyahoga County. It's mandatory Jesus, AA, and NA from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's for the first 6 months, there's no work, no school, no job training, no outside activities from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's all Jesus, AA, and NA. And
Yeah, you just got to pray and you get to stay there.
and if not, you go where two Braids.
I mean, their service, sorry, I just.
They make me pray too.
Yeah. I want to just go here. We have respite homes, Mary and Joseph's home. They're very limited, but they're for individuals that are experiencing homelessness that have acute physical medical needs, right? So oftentimes hospitals will refer there. We get people that are in there that have acute physical needs, right? And you have to go through coordinated intake. So the individual shelter system, you can just walk in and they can get served there at 2100 and Norma Herr, and then they would do like what they call a reverse referral, but it's like they call the next morning, but you would get access at the Norma Herr and LMM. Yeah. For families. So they do families, and then a lot of their other work, they have the reentry work that they do that's not quite part of the homeless system, but it's still, really needed. Yeah. Or they used to have like sex trafficking and human trafficking beds and stuff.
So how long can someone stay in one of these?
Yeah, there's no length of stay. We have no length of stay. The average, I think I saw this, our average length of stay is 126 days. So, but what is interesting is by far of the, I think the shelter system, the majority of people self-resolve. They solve their homelessness within 7 days and they move out. Yeah. They go to stay with family, they stay with friends, right? So this system, which is actually really helpful, this system is you have no other place to go, right? You don't have a hotel, you have no family and friends. Like, it's either a shelter or the streets.
Did you say families cannot be two-parent?
Well, that's interesting. I think there are some shelters that allow two families. They often will separate and push the man into the men's shelter and so they don't necessarily stay together very often.
Hey, Chris, the man has to be on the document, on the birth certificate. If the male is not on the document, then the male is not allowed to stay. And that's when they'll call NEOCH or Braids. Like, hey, Braids, we got a guy over here. We need to go to the men's shelter.
But I can barely find my birth certificates, like, when it's time for vaccination. So, like, is someone likely to be carrying that around?
And you weren't evicted twice in the last 5 years either, right? So you can't find it then, like, you know, that.
So when you go to one of these shelters to walk in, are they there all day long? Because I understood that they have to come in by a certain time, like the doors open at 6 o'clock, and they have to be there at 9, and they put back on the street, so there's no time to serve.
No, I think that might be with the city mission, but you could walk in anytime and be served at families have different stuff, right? Like, but for the single adults, like, you could go in and out.
And do they stay there all day? Because I understood that they have to wake up at 6 o'clock, you eat your breakfast, you go, you have to be back home by 6 o'clock or whatever. That's what I understand. I'm not sure that's true or not.
Yeah, so they do shut down at different times, right? They ask people to leave, but then you can come back after 4. Like, for LMM, it's after 4 o'clock. You can come back. But if you have a reason to be in the shelter, you're also allowed to stay, right? But I think generally it's like, if you're not doing anything here, you should go. Huh? No, I don't know about them. What do they do? Okay, age. Yeah, so my guess is, so this system would respond to aging out of foster care. If you were homeless, you would probably go to North Point or one of the single adult shelters. There's also a lot of work that has happened in our community to prevent young adults aging out of foster care from entering into this shelter system, right? So Betsy's Angels is probably a program that is like trying to prevent young adults from entering into shelter. Any other? Yeah.
Well, just a comment in that this is kind of a stress system, no matter what.
Yeah.
And then you have people who do have homes or shelter, and that they live in an apartment building, and then there's a big fire.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have 100 households then that are now outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the Red Cross supports them for a while. But even then, whether they're, like, nobody has extra housing, like, in case there's something like
I guess CMHA did after that fire. They had all these empty units that no one was living in. They put them in. I don't know how that happened. But yeah. Yeah, like, so natural disasters, right, is clearly like a reason people experience homelessness. Typically, there's an alternative response that is not pushing people into the shelter system, right? And I think that's typically, if it's an individual fire for a family, they might end up in the family shelter system. And the Red Cross, gives them some stability, but ultimately, like, they have to figure out, Any questions about this system?
What is WSCC?
Westside Catholic Center. They run a family shelter. So we're not, these are, so I want to say something about this here. This system is built to provide immediate shelter and get access to permanent housing for these individuals. That is their two tasks. That's what they are asked to do. They're not there to provide mental health support. They're not there to work on your addiction. Their role is to provide you a safe place to sleep and get you as quickly as possible into permanent housing. Yeah. I think none of these places have sobriety requirements. So when we're talking about like treatment stuff, that is a different role, a different thing, right? So like clearly like treatment and stuff, like they come in, they have case managers, behavioral health specialists, all of these things happen in these places, but this system has been tasked with these two things, right? To make homelessness rare, brief, and non-reoccurring.
Forgive me for asking, but I think it's on documentaries and things, you have people on the street who say, I'm not going to a shelter because it's not safe, they're going to steal all my stuff,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Is that true? I mean, you said it's a safe place to sleep. Is it really safe?
Yeah. I mean, by far, the majority of people that go to these shelters have a good experience and access to housing, right? Would I want to, like, if I was homeless tonight, would I choose to go and sleep with 400 other men on the worst day of their possible lives in the same room, sharing bunk beds? Like, yeah, that sounds really hard, And when you have 400 people living together on the worst day of their lives, struggling with all of the things people struggle with, trying to does bad stuff happen? Of course it does, right? I mean, I think anywhere in those situations, like people, will fight and do all of those things, right? I mean, I'm just thinking like if you put 400 college students in a room together for a month, right? Like what diabolical thing would they come up with to do, right? Yeah, right? So I mean, I think putting it in perspective, no one should be living in a shelter, right? Homelessness shouldn't exist. And when you have too many people in one room that are all with all of their, sins and stuff like trauma, all of these things that happen, it's hard. But I would say, and we see that, our work, we encounter those. We encounter the people that, won't go there, right? These are all the people on the streets, right? They were either involuntary exited or they don't want to go there for that reason. And I think it shouldn't stop them from getting access to housing, but it's we get that. Oh yeah, so this is the next question in this whole thing is how do you get out? How do you get out? You get a job, right? Yeah, so we are a housing first community, which Trump is now trying to eliminate, which means that there should be no barriers to housing, right? You don't have to be sober, you don't have to do anything. You should get housing first, and then we can provide the wraparound services for you to have stable housing, right? And so that looks like two different ways. I wish this was long way, but so for single adults, we have permanent supportive housing. We have around 870 plus units of permanent supportive housing available to single adults that have been homeless for 365 days or 4 times in the last 3 years that equal 365 and have a disability. If you meet these requirements, you can go into one of these units.
How many units did you say?
There's 875 units in our community. So yeah, for this permanent supportive housing, it is a tool that is tasked specifically with ending chronic homelessness, right? So if you are a single adult with a disability and you have been homeless for 365 days or in the last 3 years, you would get access to permanent supportive housing, and permanent supportive housing would allow you to live there and you would pay 30% of your income to live there. And if you don't have an income, you pay nothing because you pay 30% of zero, right? But if you are a family, you get what we call a rapid rehousing voucher. It's 12-month subsidy with services, and you would take that voucher, my artwork's beautiful, to the private market, and you would find someone to rent you an apartment or a house, and this system would pay that rent for 12 months. Rapid rehousing. An adult with a child. 2 adults with 1 child. Not 2 adults. No. You could get a single. There are rapid rehousing available for single adults too, but they're very limited. That would be possible. You would get rapid. That's yeah.
So to be homeless for 365 days, it means you have to survive the winter in Cleveland homeless.
Yeah. No, I mean so this permanent supportive housing is a lifetime subsidy where you can live there forever, and it's specifically trying to work with people that are like chronically homeless for whatever reason.
You gotta make it through the winter.
Well, yeah. Well, you probably would, yeah.
Wait, is that 365 days out of 3 years?
Yeah, so it's out of 3 years. So I guess technically you could like be homeless in the summers and then like figure out something in the winters, but yeah. Well, to go into this system, you got to go through coordinated entry. So, like literally, we do these applications every day. Is June 2022 through July 2022, they were at 2,100. Then they were on the street. We document that they were on the street between August, like literally is what happens. And you go through coordinated entry. And they'd say, you were here during these days, on these exact dates. We have an entry for you in the shelter system that was there.
So at the shelter, you always have to like sign it out?
Yep. Yeah, and then like NEOC writes you a letter that says, we know you were on the street for these times. Or the city mission writes a letter like, we know you were here, right? So there's like, but you have to show the 365 days every time. And they would be like, literally they would be like, well, you say you were on the streets, but we saw that you were incarcerated in August. So you only had 355 days, so you're not eligible yet. Literally. Yeah, we write those letters for them. Like, we document stuff like that. A lot. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of detail there, like how they came up with this number and stuff like that. There's this idea in homeless services of like functional zero, which would say that you need as many units to meet people that are meeting this definition regularly, a unit for each of them. But then at the same time, you have to be having exits out of the units to other types of housing, right? CMHA, other vouchers, stuff. And so they're trying to figure out what is the functional zero to always have a unit for anyone that would meet this definition while looking. And it's like a complicated algorithm that they did the math for and stuff, but they didn't get it right. But yeah, it's called HMIS, Homeless Management Information Systems. It's a national-wide thing. Different providers provide the services. I don't think City Mission uses HMIS at all. So they're not funded. So anyone that gets funding from HUD and the county government would be required to use it. City Mission doesn't, so I don't know if they use it. Right now, the operator is Frontline Services. They are a private nonprofit that has the contract to run coordinated entry in Cuyahoga County. Yeah. They run the mobile crisis unit too. They have a lot of behavioral health. They do. There's a lot of different programs they run, but coordinated entry is one of them. Frontline Services runs coordinated entry. Who is contracted by HUD? Who knows what will happen in 10 months? None of this might exist, right? I'm just going to be honest with you. Trump's plan, like his executive order, erases all of this. These units are gone, like defunded. So I want to go back to this. There's other ways people get out. So we have Section 8 housing. What is Section 8? So there's two types of Section 8. This isn't a homeless-specific program, right? This is a poverty alleviation program, but people that are homeless typically qualify. You have the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and then you have the property-based, right? The property-based is where they do the tenant selection plans that do a life look-back period. The Housing Choice Voucher is a voucher that you use in private neighborhoods. So who are protected classes in, like who are the protected classes in our society? Okay, hold on. So we have family status, which family status is a protected class. In Ohio, veterans are a protected class. Who else? Disability, right? You can't discriminate based on disability. Yes. Sexual orientation and gender identity in Cuyahoga County. You have family status up there. But not under the Fair Housing Act. Sexual orientation is not a protected class federally. Like, I just want to... religion. Race and ethnicity, right? Is age a protected class? Yeah. So my question here is, what can you discriminate based on? Not in Cuyahoga County, you can't. Yeah, so you can criminal background screenings, right? Let's go back here. Landlords can look at your criminal background and decide whether they want you to live there, right? This is important, though, like to understand this, though. Criminal background screenings. So, a housing place, right? We're gonna screen everyone for criminal backgrounds, right? And what's gonna happen? Yeah, so you can, the policy, but it has a disproportionate impact on black and brown people, right? And so, it's a legal process that is perpetuating racism, right? And I think that's important to understand. Like criminal background screening. What were the other stuff? Income. Say more about that. So credit. And then your source of income, right? So how many people have ever seen no Section 8 welcomed here or no Eden welcome here? Has anyone seen a sign like that? Like you look on Facebook, if you're looking for a house, it'll say no Eden, no Section 8, all of these things, right? What they are doing is they are discriminating based on source of income, right? They're saying we don't take vouchers, we need to see your pay stubs. We want you to work, right? And so, you're a rapid rehousing using a voucher, Section 8 person using a voucher, right? That's what they're looking at. So, I often say, we come back to the same thing, right? We come back to this, to get out of the shelter, you run into the same problems as the reason you got into them, And so, like, it's a system that's built to function, that has policies and procedures and ways of working, right, that, you know, it can be changed, but it's also like, it's flawed, right? And it forces people to be homeless for 365 days at times, or, you know, is trying to use the private market to solve homelessness, and the private market's not working because they can charge rent that's way beyond what the voucher will pay. And so, like, it's a systemic issue that, like, is functioning and multi-layered and interlayered with all of these other systems, like criminal legal system, behavioral health system, all of these things that are, like, continuing to press people that are experiencing homelessness backs against the wall to figure out how to navigate. And so when we encounter someone and we work with someone that's experiencing homelessness, this is what they're encountering, right? This is what they're being asked to navigate. And it's fucking impossible. And that's why we have people like Braids who's like, I will help you navigate all of this. I will walk with you through it. Yeah, the police are not part of this system, nor should they be. That is not their role, right? I mean, we can talk about what the police, I mean, I think, you know, the city of Cleveland, like, you have good experiences and bad experiences, just like, you know, anyone else. And we're not a community that clears encampments, you know. Chardon is. Who's out in Chardon? Yeah, they got housed. We housed them all. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
We housed 100. Yeah, credit's due. I'm not, like, about giving elected officials, like, great things, but the Bibb administration's program to Home for Every Neighbor is rapidly housing people. He had a choice. We could either police and criminalize, or we could house them, and he chose to house them, and that's what they're doing.
Once you make it through re-entry, you get to permanent housing. What's the rate?
Yeah, this is. I just looked at these numbers. It's actually. Are they on here? So between total returns from housing to homelessness between 13 and 24 months is 7%. And then after 2 years, it's 19%. It is surprisingly high, right? I mean, low.
So there's a large amount of support.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I think the fun, like, yeah. I mean, I think, like, what we found is that most people know how to solve their homelessness. They just don't know how to access it, right? We did this thing where, during COVID, where we gave people $600 cash and said, just don't come back to the shelter for a year. And I think the numbers were like 90% of people never came back for $600. Like, people can figure out what they need. So I want to shift. We're a little bit behind here. So I want to shift gears. I want to give people like 5 minutes to stand up, take a stretch, and then come, like, don't leave the room, but unless you have to. But, like, let's take 5 minutes to breathe. So we are going to get started for the actual second half of the 2 hours we have together. So we're going to try to figure out how to make sure we all get out of here timely, though it might be hard. I think our first, so we're going to we want to switch gears and really kind of talk about, like, what does it look like to work with people who are experiencing homelessness? How do we encounter them? What does that work look like? How do we prepare ourselves? I think, the first half was really understanding, like, what is happening and why are people experiencing homelessness. And I think that's part of, like, eliminating our bias and understanding when we show up for individuals, like, having that as our knowledge is important, because it's, as we talked about, it's never as simple as just getting a job or something like that. So this is really kind of more of a practitioner thing. So I think we wanted to start. First, I want to give Josiah a chance. Josiah is actually just here for this I'm really thankful for Josiah to be here. He's done a talk at the end. We would just want to talk a little bit about the care response program that's in our community and what that looks like. Someone asked a question around policing. This is kind of a non-police response to a crisis. So Josiah's going to talk to us at the end a little bit about that program. But I don't know if you want to introduce yourselves a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was instructed to use the microphone.
So I'm going to follow directions. A lot of times I don't follow directions, but this is a new space. Thank you for welcoming me here. My name is Josiah Quarles. I am the director of organizing and advocacy at the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless. Do a lot of upstream work. So today we're talking about a lot of the work that is done when folks are already unhoused and they're already unsheltered, and the work that we can do with folks to get them back on track to stability for themselves, their families, and their neighbors. But there's also work we know that most people are just a paycheck or two away from not being able to pay their rent. There are a lot of dynamics and forces within the housing market and the relationships between landlords and tenants that we can organize around to help protect each other. So that's a large focus of my team's work, but also other issues like care response and things, the criminalization of homelessness, policies that we enact that can make it harder for folks who are living unsheltered.
And just to say, one of the things Josiah's team is working on is a fair chance housing legislation that is really seeking to attack criminal background screenings as a part of the housing application process. And we've also done a lot of work on getting source of income protections in our community. So like when we're talking about these issues, Josiah's team is really trying to build folks together to really push to make sure that like we can enact legislation that solves these problems in our community. So we're going to turn it over and we're going to do like a little quick interview of Two Braids, our outreach worker here. And I'm going to just ask him some questions around how he works with people that are experiencing homelessness. I think first, just kind of like, Two Braids, what do you love about your work as an outreach worker?
Full disclosure, these are prepared statements because anyone who knows me. But the question is, what I love about my work is a long time ago somebody told me that if you can find something that you like to do and you can find somebody to pay you to do it, you'll never have a hard day's work in your life. And that's my experience here at NEOCH with my friend Josiah Quarles and our executive director, Knestrick. What I love about my work is being able to help people, serve people, offering non-judgmental accompaniment, and having lived experience, being able to share my life circumstances and situations, life events that I've lived through, being able to help the people that I serve, and I'm allowed to accompany to cope and find solutions and strategies to problem solve and build life skills that work, and things that I've tried, some that didn't work. You know, like you might think drinking every day is a good idea, maybe not so much, but but what worked and what didn't work, just helping people and doing the thing that I love to do.
Kind of, what do you think? You've worked with a lot of individuals experiencing homelessness throughout your career. What do you think the most important thing to think about when you're with someone, when you're working with someone who's experiencing homelessness?
Always leading with love, first and foremost. Non-judgmental accompaniment, compassionate care and understanding, leading with love, respect, honoring the person's autonomy, and affirming their humanity with dignity. Like Chris knows me, I'm 54 years old. I came up in the streets. I've been robbed, stabbed, shot, been to jail more times than I care to remember, probably more times than I've been to the dentist over my lifetime. So I have a certain way of thinking, and what Chris and Josiah and Kate and Chelsea and some of the other directors and administrators at NEOC are helping me to come to understand is that it can't always be about two Braids way. It has to be about, what's best for the person and what the individual thinks is their best path moving forward. Now, I can offer suggestions and advice, but ultimately it has to be up to the person to make their own decisions, and then I just have to be there to support them and ride shotgun and let them drive the car. I walk in their shoes, and someone told me that you don't just walk in their shoes. Sometimes you also have to, sleep in their pajamas so you can understand their dreams, because what two Braids thinks is best might not always be best for Joe or Jim or Tammy or Terry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
When you are, say you're at a drop-in center, you're beginning to start want to outreach someone. How do you start developing that relationship with someone?
Close your ears, Chris. I usually do it with a cigarette. And Chris told me 7 or 8 years ago that is not authentic outreach. Two Braids do not be passing out cigarettes. You're cheating. You're supposed to shake their hand, give them a hug if they're willing to embrace you, and put yourself in their moccasins and walk with them and accompany them. I just give them a cigarette. That's a good icebreaker. Hey, buddy. And I don't smoke, but hey, buddy, you want a cigarette? No charge, man. Here's a quarter, here's $1. No, that's not what I'm here for. I'm just here for you. I'm here to serve you as a representative of the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless. You don't have to accept my accompaniment and my support, but if you do, I appreciate it. It's an honor and a privilege, and I lead with love, authentic concern, trauma-informed care, genuine empathy, and just understanding. I've been there. So that's what they mean by the lived experience. I've been a crackhead. I've been an alcoholic. I was 18. I had a needle in my arm. I only smoked crack one time for 8 or 9 years, but I've smoked crack before. I've been there before. I've slept in a bus stop. I've slept on a park bench. I've slept in an abando. One of the numerous times that I was arrested for having, literally a granule of salt of crack in my pocket on an RTA bus. I didn't have an open container, but you could smell the Mad Dog 2020 on me. And when the RTA police woke me up, they turned my pockets inside out. I had literally a granule of salt of crack in my pocket, and they took me to jail for it. I stayed in jail for a month for essentially a granule of salt of crack, and I got charged initially with drug possession, and now Mr. Knestrick and the lawyers at NEOC are helping me to get that stuff expunged. I got a attempted drug possession from 1995 that's still on my criminal background. I'm working to get it expunged now. Thank you.
What would be this is not on the thing, I'm going to throw you a curveball, but for someone that maybe doesn't have the lived experience to relate to someone, right? Or how would you advise someone to start a conversation with someone that's experiencing homelessness? What does that look like?
It's the same thing. Leading with love, putting yourself in their situation, in their circumstances. As you said, as Josiah said, the average person, given today's economy and the current administration, we're all just, a few paychecks away from being in jeopardy of experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. So to always just put yourself in that other person's shoes. Think about if that was me, how, what the Lord Jesus Christ said, what you did to the least of them, you did to me. So if that person is outside on the streets, if that was me, how would I want to be treated? What would Jesus do? What would the creator of the heavens and everything good and pure and perfect in the earth, on the earth and in the universe have me to do with this, my brother, my sister, my son, my daughter, my brethren? How would the creator have me to engage and embrace that person?
So what happens if that person doesn't want to be engaged by you, and is rude to you? What do you do?
Okay. Chris knows this firsthand. I've been punched, slapped, groped, physically assaulted, and with NEOC, we always lead with love, regardless of what our lesser demons and better angels would have us to do. If I am not in a position where I feel my life and physical safety are in harm or at jeopardy, I always lead with love and compassion. I will ask for a tap in to get somebody else's, input in it. It's, called de-escalation. So if someone's rude to me, I try to be more compassionate, more empathetic, more understanding, not re-traumatizing them, dealing with trauma-informed care, because hurt people hurt people. So if I'm coming, hey, I'm 2 Braids. I love you, brother. I care about your sister. We're here to serve you. We're here to help. We're offering our support. And they're like, F you, screw you, get away from me, this, that, and the other. I don't take it personally. I don't get offended. I'm a man, but, in the capacity of this work that we do, we're servants of the Most High first and foremost. Always lead with love, always lead with compassion and understanding. And as citizens in the community that more than likely haven't experienced or, God willing, never will experience homelessness, when you encounter somebody, giving the person $1 or $2, giving them a handshake, giving them, a street card. Okay, Chris often corrects me. He's like, hey, don't pass out those little pieces of paper. Give them a whole book. I'm like, Chris, I know these people. They're going to throw that book away, man. I'm going to give them a flyer, and, hopefully they'll call the office or call me. But if you can, come in to NEOC, get you 10 or 15 street cards, keep them in your saddlebag in your car, and when you pull up to the exit ramp or the freeway, give them a street card. You don't have to give them $1. Leave them for me and Josiah and Chris to work with, and we'll take it from there.
In your work, what do you think the role of first compassion and secondly, more importantly maybe, is dignity?
I always try to respect the person's dignity and lead with love and compassion. Chris has offered me the opportunity, along with Josiah, to do trainings and seminars at a local and national level with the Veterans Administration, because I believe people recognize that having my lived experience and coming from where I've been and where I come from, that things I say and the way I handle myself and deal with people in the community, that is genuine and authentic, and it's always about love, respect, honor, dignity, respecting the person as I respect myself, treating them as I would, treat myself. That's one of the 10 commandments, love your brothers and sisters as you would love yourself, and that's how I live my life. That's why I'm here at NEOC. I can make more money at Amazon with Jeff Bezos, but I love Chris Knestrick. I don't know Jeff Bezos, so I'm here at NEOC. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to just to tap in on the approach. I think that sometimes you overthink it. How would you talk to your friend? How would you talk to your family member? How would you talk to someone that you had to sit at the bus stop with and wait for an hour? Right? People are just human beings. So it goes back to the dignity. And folks are in situations where a lot have not had autonomous control of how they've been able to live their life, when they can eat, what they can wear, where they can go, when they get up, when they go to bed. All of these things a lot of times have been taken out of their control. And so a reaction that is seeking to control the situation, it may be unhealthy, but it's understandable. And so to recognize that the anger and frustration that is directed at us sometimes, whether it be from unhoused folks or from tenants I'm trying to organize, right? That is a frustration that they have for their management company, their landlord, another tenant who's been harassing them or whatever. There are systems that folks are angry at, but they can't reach them. So we just have to have the humility to hold that and to honor that, and hopefully be able to de-escalate and then re-enter that conversation, whether it be ourselves or we hand it off to somebody else.
Thanks. So I'm going to move quickly here, and I'm going to ask you to get in groups, like groups of 2 to 3 individuals, wherever you're at. And groups of 3 would be really helpful. And I'm going to ask you to share a time where you were treated with dignity and a time that you felt like maybe you weren't treated with dignity. You don't have to share all the details, but if you could share the experience, that would be really helpful. Does that make sense? So I'm for the sake of time, just kind of gather where you're at. If you could we'll spend 1 minute just thinking about that, like what are 2 you're comfortable sharing in that space, and then we'll come back. I will give a 5-minute warning. So I'm going to ask if folks are willing and able to stay an extra 15 minutes so we could finish up the workshop. That would be really helpful. I actually have a mic on me. They don't listen. So I want to ask the group if anyone's willing to share, what feelings came up for folks? Anger? Why anger? What were you angry about?
You're not paying attention to me. I'm talking to you and you're on your phone.
Oh, yeah. So they weren't being present with you.
That's just in general.
Yeah.
Or making assumptions about you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
That you are a lower standard. So that you should do the dirty work, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
When talking about when someone treated you with dignity, I remembered, especially in times that were really difficult, like after my dad died, it was the way people treated me with dignity during those times that made the most impression on me. And so it was when I was experiencing the hardest things, people who treated me with dignity then are the ones that most easily came to mind when I'm asked that question.
Oh, wow, yeah. Anyone over here?
Powerless in that situation. It's really frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, how much of dignity is about having power, to control what you need to be able to control in your lives? Yeah.
Following on from that, I think sometimes when it's not something that's happening to you, it's easy to hear words but not be recognizing the magnitude of it for someone. And so I think sometimes, if you're in a situation where you're even trying to get help and you're frustrated it's not happening, it's easy for someone else to kind of be frustrated. It seems like you're being demanding, not realizing the sense of powerlessness that you might be having or the magnitude of what it is. I think that's the thing that's hard to put in perspective if you're not experiencing it.
Yeah. So that kind of goes into the second question. How might your experiences help you relate to someone that you're encountering on that is experiencing homelessness?
We have a food pantry in Mansfield at Gracie Episcopal every week. We see the homeless every week. We treat them with dignity. They are called our guests. We're shepherds.
Well
I like
done.
that word.
Yeah.
I think that in my mind, it's the de-escalation that comes in I've seen people here on help serve the homeless meal here times, and there's certain situations that have escalated. Or we have a struggle group. We're just playing at Denny's, and this woman, it's Denny's. They screw up your order on a normal basis. You can't expect too much. You're at Denny's. This woman was having 2 tables, had an absolute huge, giant meltdown, and it was like, you're at Denny's. I don't understand the total disconnect of your situation and being this horrible to this poor server. It was just unfathomable. We're just sitting there playing Scrabble, and it's like, how did this escalate to this far once else is going on in your life that you're that crazy that
Yeah, I wonder what's happening behind that, right? Like, that's not about the order. Like, it's about something else that's happening, right?
Okay. We, in the street outreach, we often serve people that are dealing with incontinence issues. They might have soiled themselves. At NEOC, me personally, I know Gene Cosmic, Jim Select, or Dennis Ashton. They typically don't ask the person that we're serving, that we're accompanying, if they were able to put a seat cover on the seat. They will, deal with the situation and then go through the task of cleaning the seat afterwards. In my outreach approach, I will actually ask the person if I'm allowed to put a seat cover on the seat in one of the NEOC vans so I can more effectively transport them and then save me the responsibility of cleaning the seat afterwards. We deal with people that, in response to some trauma that they've experienced, they will get naked, and we call it getting naked. When it's time to leave the event or the function where NEOC is offering support in the continuum of care, if it's a meal like here at Trinity or at St. Pat's or St. Paul's or St. Herman's, when it's time to go, it's time to go. 5 or 10 minutes before the group is wrapping up, they'll make an announcement like, hey, it's time to go. Invariably, somebody will get naked. They'll go into the bathroom, disrobe, and then once you're clearing the building, the person's there, buck naked, in their birthday suit, and, you have to deal with that. And you always, you try not to call the police. I want to mention that before we leave. And you just treat them with love and compassion, like, hey, can I offer you a couple of cigarettes and a bus ticket to put your clothes back on and come with me? Can I drop you somewhere? And that's what we do. So the thing I wanted to mention about not calling the police, I had someone that we were reaching out to in the community. They were living at a decommissioned Dave's in the neighborhood, and they were creating a disturbance or a nuisance for some of the neighbors in the community. And the person came to NEOC to confront me about the fact that I was leaving the flyers and the street cards at their place where they were camping. So this person confronted me, and in that moment, I had a lot of things going on, and he was verbally threatening me and menacing me, and he did it in front of a group of my colleagues and coworkers at NEOC, and they're like, hey, Two Braids, you want to call the police? I was like, I think I might. Let me go ask Chris about this. So me and Chris went into a private conference room. He's like, now, Two Braids, were you really worried about that guy was going to jump on you? I say, no, sir. I want to weaponize the police. I got witnesses. He threatened me. He was going to do bodily harm. He was going to kick my behind and stump my head in. And I got witnesses. He said, well, I tell you what. He said, if you want to call the police, we can call the police. But just think about it for a little bit, and then let me know what you think. And whatever you decide, I'll support you. You know I'm your brother. I love you. I said that I thought about it. I cried for a little bit. I said, why would I want to weaponize the police against somebody that's homeless and have him going through the criminal justice system for the next 6 months to a year? And I didn't, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that's something that we're going to talk a little bit more about when it comes to care response and what the options, the humane, the healthy options that we as community can create and empower so that we do not continually just re-traumatize each other and live out trauma on each other because it's a cycle that becomes inescapable.
Thanks, Two Braids. Thank you. So just a little, I think we've touched on a lot here, and just kind of like when we think about dignity and how we approach people with dignity, I think first and foremost, it requires humility and like an understanding of yourself, like be honest about like your own presumptions, what's happening, and like really being having a sense of humility in yourself when you're approaching people, that you don't know everything, that you What's going on in your day that is coming up. I think the second thing is like just relationship and being known. How do we acknowledge people directly? And how are we our authentic selves, and like what does that carry, I think I'm well aware, like I walk into a drop-in center in Milo site and I'm the executive director of NEOC, and when I say that, like I know like what people are going to say to me when they hear that. How are we my own privilege, my own power in this space? How am I recognizing that authentically? This sense of cultivating trust and mutuality, like this is a mutual relationship. It's as much as possible, is there informed consent in the conversation? Like, do they want to talk to you? Do they not? Are you forcing it? Maybe they just want to come to your food pantry, get their food and go, right? And that's where they're at that day. And maybe the next day it's different. Like, where is the, and not, I think we recognize the problem, but it's not about pity or just seeing the problem. It's about empathy, knowing what the person's walking with to be able to be in that mutual relationship with them. This dignity takes choice. The idea, like, respect the person's autonomy and their own right to self-determination. What do they want? How are they, what is their autonomy in this conversation? And then I think, in that we can always connect them to resources. I think Braids has talked a lot about, hey, I'm offering things and it's people's choice to kind of be able to take it up on it. I can't force anyone to do anything, but I want to make sure people know what resources are out there. And I think understanding, right, this, like, understanding what folks are walking with, what are their shoes carrying, from the experience in the shelter, but that's just one experience, and if they're living on the street, that's a different experience, but really, and that, like, the system's bigger than any one choice someone can make to solve their problem, right? It's layered and complex, and so like making sure we're understanding that when we're talking to folks, that it's not like, oh, if you would just do this, everything would change. It's not the reality of what happens. And so, I think all of that informs like a dignified approach of how do we approach people with dignity and holding all of that when you talk to folks.
I was just thinking of the dignity of our pamphlets, and in my panel, it's kind of a language thing. The literacy factor.
Yeah.
People might be throwing something back at you because they can't read it, and you're just taking them to another level by frustrating them by getting them a pamphlet.
Yeah, that's
I don't know what that literacy factor is and how it's approached. But I can understand where somebody would be like,
yeah.
And I would say I worked for years in after-school programs in CMSD. And I'd have kids, it was creative writing and soccer, the program combined the two. And I would coach and teach both. And, I would get teachers who would come to me and be like, this kid cannot play. This kid cannot participate. And I'd be like, why? And like, well, he's acting up. He's terrible. He's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, this kid is great. like, this kid is like awesome. I love this kid. And then like over time, you would see like when it would become a problem. And it specifically would become a problem if they were unable to participate. Right? That inability and that shame and that frustration would lead to people acting out. And that is, people carry that with them. And when that is not addressed, you'll see it pop up. And they're not 8 years old anymore, but that wound is still the same. So thank you for raising that. And whatever we can do to understand where someone is and the supports that they can be provided is what, if we have to sit and read things with them. A lot of times it's like you need someone who can walk you through this whole thing. And then the literacy thing, that's down the road because that takes much more intensive work that the person may not be ready for. And certainly I'm not ready to engage in that, right? But creating ways to communicate and get people through challenges where they're seen, they're heard, and they're not shamed. And like a reaction like that can just be accepted. It's fine. Like, it's not a big deal for me. You know what I mean? I'm okay.
Go ahead. Our church used to be a theater to the city mission. And so we would eat breakfast, and this is pre-COVID. We would prepare breakfast for the community to come out. And at the very beginning, our pastor had to set the tone for our membership. They may not dress like us, they may not look like us, but this could be us. And so you had to level set everybody at that particular point in time. Then, as we level set everyone, then you have to meet them where they are. You need to get to know them. Your name is, my name is. Once you feel that relationship being built, all of it, because they come in with the fist mechanism already built in. Because they think, hey, you're not going to treat the right because I'm homeless. You're not going to treat the right because I'm just like you. You don't treat the right because we're lost. But once you meet them where they are, get to know their name, then the fist mechanism sort of decreases. And then they begin to become part of you. Because I've seen them on the streets. They may not know my name. Oh, but you're the deacon from the church I go to. You're this person, they're that person. But you've got to get to know them on their level. You cannot have that big you and the little them. You've got to be at the same level to get to know them. Make them feel comfortable with you, and you've got to be comfortable with them. Because they recognize you. They will recognize you. They may not know your name, but they know your faces. They know that you do something in that church or that environment. So you've got to get them to get to know them. And to sort of decrease that defense mechanism a little bit so they will be able to, you'll be able to receive them. And when we did that, hey, our church, we started an 8 o'clock service after in-house. I wanted to worship service. We started an 8 o'clock service because City Mission fed into that. Those men came over there and they fed. Wow. And the 2100 men came over. And so we began to build our church ministry through alternate mechanisms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I think, like, space has so much to do with it. Like, I think when I was running drop-in centers and stuff, like my role, I never served a meal over the counter. Like, I wouldn't want to do that, you know. I'd be like, you know, I would go, I would eat, and I would sit down and sit at the table, same table they're at, and just eat with folks, right? And so, like, how do we, like, I think our meals are set up in a way where we're, like, efficient, getting, you know, there's a lot of folks and stuff, but how are we, like, going around the counter to actually encounter people, right? Where it's like, hey, you're here, you know, there's nothing wrong with, like, just eating a meal together, you know?
Can I ask a question about the practicality? I think we all can name stories when we want to lead with love, and we want to engage people in a way that is loving and supportive and caring. But oftentimes, the occasions to do that are tricky because something happens in the middle of a service. Chris, you were actually here leading the forum, and someone came in.
I remember that guy.
And sort of raised his hand, and then stood in the center and started asking for money. We're all like, "Oh my gosh, it's happening here at Homeless Forum." Like,
It wasn't a setup.
It's go time. What do we do?
I thought it was planned.
What's that?
I thought it was planned.
Hello, a person I've never met. And someone from our community who is accustomed to this, and we have a few people who just do it instinctively well, kind of took that moment. We sat with a moment of discomfort, and then we tried our best to care for the person, which in this case meant this person, you know, we took him outside to spend time with Paul, to spend some time with him, which is what we try to do. But I think maybe what I'm getting at is how do we manage, whether it's our own discomfort, appropriate boundaries with people who are having one of the worst days of their lives, to be sure, while we're in the midst of leading a program or that kind of thing, right? We're not going to stop the whole thing.
Right.
But we realize how this person, you know, we're all kind of
engaging with what's going on in a different place? How do we meet someone where they are while also creating safety? And that's not the best word, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Right, there's a lot of words to do that, but we've got to meet all of these needs all in a given moment.
Pastor Owen, safety is a wonderful word. I am at the Pentecostal Church of Christ, East 105th in Chester, 10515 Chester Avenue, Bishop Hannah presiding. I am part of the greeter and safety ministry. So at the door is Brother John. I have my 2 braids or my ponytail in my hair, and if a situation does arise in the middle of the service, the formal security team will come and get me, like, hey, Brother John, such and such is soliciting donations during the service. Like, the congregation's got 100, 150 people in it, and this person that the church van or some of the parishioners have brought from the Norma Hare Women's Shelter or the 2100 Men's Shelter is seat hopping, soliciting donations in the congregation during the service. Now, that's not what we came for. If you want to solicit, do it after the service. You're not seat hopping like, hey, I need some bus fare. You got a couple dollars, this, that, and the other, while the man of God is trying to bring the word. That's not appropriate. So they'll point the person out. I'll go, and get in his proximity. Like, hey, brother, let me talk to you. I can, we can work something out, but not during the service. So it's, protocol, procedure, practicality, and pragmatism. You did nothing wrong. You're here to lead the house, and you're the shepherd. You know what's right from wrong.
Thank you. And I'm hearing that engagement is a skill.
Yep, it is.
And it's not one that everybody has, but there's things that we can all cultivate, and then really find. There are going to be some, and I think if we feel called to that, how do we learn how to do it? Because
again, with love, and that's what you said.
Yeah.
I think it's a good pivot to and we're already past time. So
yeah,
I think it's a good pivot to the last point, which is there are people who have been trained specifically to do this. There are people who have lived through it, who have been that person, that disruptive person, who have been dealt with either dignity or without dignity, and have moved through these systems of either care or incarceration, and have been able to navigate those. And within the care ecosystem, we call those peer responders. Right, so these are not clinicians, right? These are not people with advanced degrees. These are people who have the understanding of how to communicate, have been in those places, know those frustrations, and can navigate it, right? And when you pair that kind of talent that has been cultivated, right, along with someone who can do some more clinical things, address and diagnose some more deeply embedded problems, whether they stem from trauma or it's a chemical thing or maybe it's just a physical thing that's manifesting in this sort of way, we're able to provide the kind of care that is needed in places where it is not usually able to be received. And there has been a movement across this country to create models of this care response, which is non-police response. So somebody is bothering somebody. They're soliciting outside of a restaurant, right? What does the restaurant owner do? He calls the police, right? Someone set up a tent in your adjacent yard that doesn't have a house on it, and you're like, what am I going to do? I'm going to call the police. Well, you don't have to call the police. But we have to create other mechanisms to engage in these spaces. So the first one that was created in Eugene, Oregon. It was called Cahoots. It began in the 80s, just volunteer groups. Actually, the late 70s started showing up to like festivals and stuff because people were ODing and tripping out on drugs and having bad experiences and getting beat up by the cops and stuff. And so they were like, we got to do something. So they would just pull up this van at the festivals, right? And they just, act as kind of like street medics. And over time, their skills got better, their capacity grew, they became recognized within the community. The city eventually brought them on board. And so there were 911 calls that were being triaged away from the police and to these specific units. And the Whitebird Clinic held that space. Now, unfortunately, due to some of the federal cuts, that longest running program is no longer in operation. So the city of Oregon has tried to take some of what they've done and incorporate into the city systems, but as a standalone operation, it no longer exists. So that is a real threat across like all sectors of things as we talk about this. But the power is that idea and that advocacy was so well proven that there are now dozens of these programs operating across the country, from Baltimore to Denver to New York to Minneapolis to Cincinnati, and we have a pilot program that is operating here, although it does not tap into the 911 system. So that's the last hurdle that we need to cross, because people know to call 911, right? Re-educating an entire populace about a new number and its functionality is not going to work. I do want people to know about 988, and I'm about to talk about it. But the hurdle we need to cross is that this has been bifurcated from the emergency response system, so people don't get the option to de-escalate themselves. But instead, what the city has is like co-response. So it's a cop and a clinician. It's no one with lived experience, and it doesn't come directly to the scene. They're only doing follow-ups, really. But 988 is a national number, which was created largely around like suicidality. So you could call the number if you were alone, you were having suicidal thoughts, you needed someone to talk to so that you would not do harm to yourself, right? It has expanded in its scope to now hold a lot of, so mobile crisis, if folks have heard about that, right? That is a poor man's care response. It's like it's not that mobile and it can't get to you right away, but it's sort of mobile. So they get calls through 988 as well and do follow-ups. And the current pilot is pairing a clinician and a peer responder, and they are focusing on 2 zip codes, which are 44105 and 44102, I think. It's near West Side.
2 is West Side.
Yeah. So they're focusing on those 2 areas, but because like people don't know what 988 is, the call volume is not super high. They're operating 24 hours a day. They've got 2 teams on at all times. The frontline staffs has hired the teams, and the workers are incredible. They are excellent. They are passionate, and they are purposeful, and they want this program to expand. And so if they are not on a call and they get a call in from 988 that would fit the team, they will take that call as long as it's in the city of Cleveland. So though it is targeting those areas for data purposes, they want to provide the service to people who need it. So I would strongly encourage folks, if you are in a situation, if it does seem like somebody needs a higher level of care, but not necessarily like to be incarcerated, to have another criminal record, to have something that's going to be another impedance to them living like the life that they want to live, there is another option, and we are trying to expand that option. There are some folks on city council who are trying to pass what is called Tanisha's Law, named after Tanisha Anderson, who was killed by police during a mental health crisis when her family members called. So they are trying to create a department within the city that would be able to build out this programmatically. And so those are the sorts of things that I think would really be incredible tools that we have a little bit of access to right now. And then we can also learn those tools in community and be able to respond better ourselves. So there's lots of trainings. They're all obviously trained in all of the right things. But I did just want to highlight that before I got out of here, because those are the systems that we need to build. We need to build alternatives, right, to punitive punishment.
And just kind of another resource, I think, Adams Board does a really amazing crisis intervention training that's for free. Adams Board, they do like a 4-day crisis intervention training that is free for anyone to take. And so if you're looking to get more training in crisis intervention, I think this is it's a really good opportunity to really dive deeper into a lot of this stuff and continue to equip yourself even deeper with working with folks that are in crisis. Yeah. So I think that's everything we had. We got to it 30 minutes late, but it was a 15-minute stop. But I appreciate you all staying here and doing this. I hope it was helpful.